How did each of us meet, and also what made you decide that you wanted to work together? So I open the floor to Jenny and Jen. And
okay.
Yes, Jenny and I met because we have the same name. Just kidding. Jenny, oh dear. I teach a solo performance class, as Brent mentioned, and Jenny walked into the class in 2005, yes, and she blew everyone away with her stories about Rwanda, and the class and I encouraged her to take all the stories that she had written in the class and do a one-woman show. A lot of the students in the class, you know, they're writing about like their funny dating stories in New York, or like doing their you know, funny old lady character. I do old lady characters and I tell dating stories in New York. But Jenny was telling stories about being in Rwanda after the genocide. So I think her experience just stuck out so much that we all agreed that she should do a one-person show. And then she and I began working on it together, and she started mounting performances in 2006, I guess. Yeah.
And I would just add, I think what's unusual about the collaboration is because Jen was teaching that class, she actually also helped me edit the play. And so she really helped me sort of turn the material into a play, and it was important for me to sort of have that outside perspective of someone that wasn't living that life that I was living, to say, yes, the audience can handle this material, no, they can't handle this. So it was both a sort of initially an editing and then a directing role with him.
we'll return to some further questions about your collaboration in a minute, but DJ and Dion?
Oh, I basically what I ended up doing was I come from a stand-up comedy background, and I knew that this would be different for me. I went to acting school for 2 years, and I knew what I got out of that is theater was very different, so my mind frame was different. But I wanted to find somebody that really understood story, that I can really, really trust. So I wrote a mission statement. I sent it out to probably about 15 directors, and I was looking for a female director because I really was.
You don't have to say because.
Look close. But I was waiting because I felt like, you know, it's military orientated. It would be very steel and harsh, and so I talked to a few directors, and a few contacted me. But then I got an email from Dion, and it was like 2 pages of he was a service member, and then really intricate about, you know, read my bio, and then he watched my stand-up clips, and he broke down in the email where he felt my strengths were in my stand-up. He's like, when you're physical, you know, your physicality adds to your words, and you know, that's how I feel. And I was like, wow, he really putting his eyeball on this and really took time where everyone else was like, And then we got on the phone and talked for like 2 hours, and and as soon as I was like, this is the guy. This is clearly a guy, because he was so balanced with sensitivity, so already involved, and he just said, if you trust me, we could do something. If you really trust me, that was it.
Wow. Cool. Yeah. Iyaba, how'd you end up with me?
I am a poet. I don't know, maybe 11 years ago, I was slamming all over the nation, and I was representing Connecticut as a slam master at the time. And this gentleman was working at Sing Sing Prison teaching theater. They were doing an adaptation of the movie Slam, which is about a slam poet. And they hired me to come in and work with the leading man to teach him how to be a poet, a slam poet, a performance poet. I met this brother in line going in. We had to do the whole strip search thing, and got all over each other, and I got a chance to go in.
There's nothing like going into prison.
Really kind of breaks the ice. But then I got a chance to go into a room and watch this cat with I don't know, maybe about 25, 30 brothers who were doing 25 to life, and watch his calmness and his ability to direct and teach. And so I do we walked out, and I knew that I wanted to do the poetry. I'm a poet and a painter. I knew I wanted to combine the two, but I had no idea what this was, the theater, and what the stage thing was beyond a performance poet. So watching him direct and teach, I realized it'd be cool to work with a director-teacher, a teacher-director. So walking out that night, I said, you know, I'm going to write a piece about my life, and I want you to direct it.
10 years later, he called me and said, remember that show I told you about that night at Sing Sing? He said, it's ready. And my wife and I went up to Harlem to a small gallery, Casa Freely Gallery up in Harlem. I think there were 9, 10 people there.
Yeah.
And he did like this full-out show, just blew me away. And we've been working on the show and developing it ever since.
It's
And
about a year and a half.
yeah, and we were very fortunate about 6 months in. We did a reading at Playwrights Horizons, and Jane Dubin, who's a Tony Award-winning Broadway producer, fell in love with the show and said, you know, I've done every kind of big musical and all these big things, but this show is my passion play. And so she's been with us ever since, which we're very grateful for.
But I was blessed in the same way you were, by running into a person that was aware of the fact that I was a neophyte, and so he kind of, you know, coached me by picking up my strengths right away.
Oh,
He
yeah.
talked about and those things just kind of helped me to be more comfortable, because it's a very intimidating thing. I mean, I knew stage right because I watched Snagglepuss as a kid. That was it for, me, you know. So meeting somebody who's a director, but also as a teacher that can stop and help you, instead of like teaching you something that makes you feel like you got a whole brain full of stuff that now you have to try to, you know, present what you want and think about all the instructions you just got. He'll look for the things that you're already doing naturally and just like help you make those stronger. And then, you know, 6, 7 months later, you step back and you go, wow, I'm like, you know, figuring my own stuff out now. And you know, it's a whole lot less of, you know, try it this way and, you know, how about this? And really understanding like that process. So
I
really hit the jackpot with that.
That's a beautiful part about molding these strengths into like a real, like something, instead of trying to, because the big thing that we do is he'll bring me to places that I'm not comfortable.
Yeah.
And he'll say, just go there.
Yeah.
Trust me. And we'll go all the way, and I'll go there.
Yeah. I've been there too.
And then and I'm in there, and it's an uncomfortable zone. He says, get it, go there. And it's almost like going to the gym where you're like, performance-wise, because as a stand-up, I'm always in control. And it's very, and it's very out. Stand-up's very, you know, anyone comes at you, you hit him. And this, you know, what he let me know is like, this is, the man. You know, so I had to put these things down.
Yeah.
So I had to have somebody who brought me there. And when I went all the way over there, it's like going to the gym and just like working out with 900 pounds every day. And then all of a sudden you take the stage and you grab 10s.
Yeah, and it's flying. Yeah.
Yeah, and just feel
Same
like
kind of feeling. I don't feel like a freshman there. I feel kind of like sophomore.
like sophomore year too.
Maybe like first year, sophomore year kind of thing. I definitely feel like my feet are wet now, and I feel much more comfortable up here and like trusting myself. You know what I'm saying? And a lot of it was divorcing. I had to divorce a lot of the poetry stuff, a lot of like the gimmicks I was using for the poetry thing. And then with the slam thing, it was like 3 minutes and 10 seconds worth of time on stage, so everything was like this thing. And my biggest thing was like, you know, he would just do this, like, this is probably our biggest gesture right now. It's like, and I do that now. I like internally, I can hear myself going slowly down. You know, and when he first did, I was like, man, And it's gone from being irritated by it to realizing that, hey, you know, like, I can like use every one of these words to tell the story instead of feeling like, you know, these rushes of blurs out and feeling like that the audience got that, and that's the coolest thing for me.
I'd say to myself, it's a story. It's a story, and I'll hear him say it because as a comedian, like, when I watch one-person shows, I see people who are coming from an actor's standpoint, right? And their ear is kind of actor ear. And then I see stand-ups. They're kind of stand-up ears.
Mm-hmm.
And the stand-up ears are reaction, reaction, reaction. And I had to stifle that. Because sometimes I'll hear the audience and the stand-up will pop up. Want to roll. You know, and he'll, you know, because that's, since 1994, that's the
reflex
weapon I've been using. So I had to go to this place and realize story, breathe, communicate the story. It doesn't have to be funny every second.
Yeah.
You know, if some of it's interesting, you know, which we share, which is great. George Carlin, you know, if you're interesting, they'll listen.
I feel like when you were talking, you could have been talking about my relationship with Jen, because for me, I mean, I've you know, been to acting school, but I'm not a trained actor, and Jen's had to deal with the agony of me backstage all alone. That's the hard thing about solo performance. You're all alone with no one else going, why am I doing this? And Jen's like always there, like, you know, you can do it, and you know, and it's my story I'm telling. So I think Jen has done this amazing thing of, you know, trying to bring me out on stage, and you know, I'm not being someone else, I'm being me, but I'm also dealing and talking about really difficult stories and difficult things that have happened to me. So initially it was very hard. I was very deadpan telling these stories. I didn't want to connect to them, and when I started writing the piece, I had nightmares for the first time, and so it was sort of finding a space where I could talk about these stories, be connected to what I was actually saying without breaking down in a puddle of tears and stopping the show after 5 minutes. And so, you know, I think Jen's really helped me work with this very sort of sensitive material, and also just how to make me feel that it's okay to tell this story. You know, at the beginning I was like, no, I feel bad, and I wanted to interrupt the show and say, there's a funny bit coming, it's okay. And so it was sort of how I, you know, how I could sort of have the audience, you know, like she kept saying, people can deal with it, people need to hear the story, and then we'd find the lightness in it.